Hello and welcome to the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot, and this is part of my 29 Days of Magic series. And where each episode I interview another amazing woman who's doing some great work. And today I'm so delighted to have Debbie Ellison, who's the Global Chief Digital Officer for VMLY&R Commerce. It's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Debbie.
Hey, Laura.
I'm so happy that you're on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I feel really honored.
It's a delight to have you. So the way this works is the first question, always the same. The answer is always hilarious. I feel like yours will be no different. So, Debbie, what was your first job?
Oh, let me have a thing. So my first job that I can remember, because I'm pretty old now and I probably don't have the best memory, but one of my first jobs was working in a market stall in Hackney, which is in London, working on a market stall selling kind of bespoke kind of fashion wear to predominantly young people. So I had the time of my life. I could get to trial out my pitter patter and my sales. You know, I was an extrovert even at that young age. I think I was 15 at the time. And like I loved spending Saturdays and Sundays in the market stall, just selling clothes. And I learned that I was a good salesperson.
So selling clothes at 15 years old.
Yeah.
Well, you're selling items that people want in a place that they are happy to be in, which sort of translates to what you do now because you're still working in digital, selling stuff that they want in a place that they're in. So it always kind of correlates in some way, shape, or form. But what was the journey like from going from being in that little mart to where you are today?
Yeah. Gosh, I love these questions. So I grew up in a council estate in London, but because my mum she was an NHS nurse in Hampstead, which is quite a well-to-do area, if anyone who's listening knows it. And so I went to school near where she worked in Hampstead. And it was really light years away in terms of experience between where I was living and where I was being educated in school. So all my friends had mansions and pools and then, at the end of the day, after our play dates, I used to, go back to a council estate, and just that there was such a stark difference in those experiences. And it, like, I have to say, like, it made me really hungry for, wanting to do well in my life. And quite frankly, it is an experience that made me, but quite frankly, I didn't want to be in, right? And so I spent a lot of time just working really hard at school. And I remember one of my teachers speaking to my mom and saying, your daughter is smart, and you should think about putting her into private education. And of course, my mom couldn't afford it. And at the time, I was really blessed to get a scholarship to an amazing girls' private school in Harley Street in London. And it was there that I studied computer science, right? So we were the first girls' school. Oh my goodness, this is making me sound even older.
Oh, stop.
Yeah.
You look 12. Stop.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Laura, for everyone that can't see me. But I went to this private school, and it was the first girls' school to offer computer science as a subject, and they only allowed 4 places in the class. And so the computer teacher was giving interviews to all the students who wanted to apply for a place, right? And you can imagine there was probably 30 or 40 students who could have been given a chance to study computer science. And I remember that when he interviewed me, he said, well, why do you want a place on the computer science course? And I knew nothing about computers, by the way, at the time. And I was 15 or so, 16. And he said, why do you want a place? And I was like, because I want to be rich like you and drive a BMW motorbike.
Fabulous. I love it.
And he must have just thought, Oh, I don't know what he thought, and I'd love to ask him even now, but he basically said, yeah, you got a place. And I got one of the 4 places on that computer science course, and the rest is really history. I did computer science at GCSE level, so that's kind of this age 16, and then I went on to do it at university, and then I got a graduate placement at GSK as part of my 4-year university course. Really then starting getting into internet technologies and using a lot of what I'd learned at school, started to break into coding in internet technologies, then went into technology consultancy, and I really started to have a penchant for developing interesting user interfaces. I really liked the discipline of using something quite logical like coding and creating experiences, web experiences for people to use. Then started work on one of the first teams to do live streaming. So Copper Knobs, which was a fashion brand, went into live streaming, and then for B Sky B, which is now Sky. And yeah, like really the rest is history. I stayed in the digital space, stayed in the commerce space, e-commerce space, really since then. And I love the fact that I kind of fell into it. So when I ever advise anybody about a career, or my children, and I speak to them about their career, I just say, try everything, because you never know what you will fall in love with and do.
Amazing. So, okay, you're a woman working in tech in the UK. What in the world is that even like? I know it's like here in the US.
I think I feel really fortunate in saying I think it affects me less, because it's a male-dominated industry, right? So actually, but I don't think I've ever felt that I have been disadvantaged, because I feel like I deserve my place and I deserve my voice. I actually do think just being a woman has just been challenging in a leadership position. So I don't think it's the discipline of technology or computing, but I actually think it's just being a female business leader that has been challenging for me, Laura.
Wow, interesting. Because like I said, here in the US, it is interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
And it's similarly white male dominated. And there's a lot of interesting stratifications, because even within tech, there's like you'll see like lots of women in tech, but it'll be white women in tech. It won't be women of color in tech. And so there's a lot of that stratification that happens here. And as I've always said to folks, like, make the economic argument. When you include more people, you include more money in your pocket, because you need the different perspectives.
Yeah.
Especially when you're building tech, to understand the use cases, because I'm sure this is a huge thing in your neck of the woods. But it's like we were talking about before, like, you may never have thought to use X technology this way, but actually these communities use it this way. And if you spoke to them with respect, lo and behold, you get even more users of your technology. And that oftentimes gets so lost on folks.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a couple of things. One of which is, I spoke to you about the reason why I fell in love with technology and kind of what I did. But the reason why I'm still in love with technology is because I do think it's a vehicle. It can be a democratic vehicle, right? So what I love about digital and tech is that actually it's become more accessible, right? So, I look at my daughter, who has set up a number of businesses, imported goods from China, set up her own e-commerce platform, driven customer acquisition through her social channels. And, back in my day, you would never been able to do that, right? You would have had to have a budget of £2 million before you could even spin up, an end-to-end solution like that. So the fact that, there are platforms out there that she can tap into, and she doesn't have any technical or digital expertise, I think is phenomenal. And I actually see it as an equalizer, or at least an opportunity for people of color, for women, to really be able to leverage, this space to their benefit. I absolutely agree with you also, though, that, there is a job to be done being able to use digital and technology to change the experiences and make them more relevant, make them more culturally relevant, make them more relevant to different people. And I just don't think enough of that is being done at the moment, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It's like there's so much you can do.
I know.
So what's your day job now like?
So predominantly helping our people and helping our clients really understand the power of some of the new commerce channels that are available to their brands and to their customers. So, I spoke to you about my daughter and how you spun up her own business, and made enough money to see her through university. And the fact of the matter is, there are lots of entrepreneurs who are really challenging kind of the big heritage brands, right? And so my job is really to help our clients understand what are those new channels, how can we leverage them in a way that's agile and responsive and differentiated for the brands, and how do we really create standout, differentiated, culturally relevant experiences for their consumers. And so that could take the form of social commerce, plus the capability that I launched a couple of years ago, really looking at the opportunity of social and how we can help use social to drive business growth, not just drive brand love. It could be, the manifestation of the flagship, which I'm now rebuilding in London and New York, that really brings that customer first connected brand experience to life for our clients. In a really immersive way. So we use floor to ceiling projection in order to kind of bring that experience to life for clients. It could mean, it also means building up capability both for our clients and for our people around how they take advantage of marketplaces like Alibaba and Amazon to help drive business growth, also in a way that's human-centered and understands kind of the needs of the ever-changing needs of consumers. So really multifaceted, really interesting work across a number of clients and categories. And then on top of my day job, I'm driving a lot of the programs and initiatives, D&I initiatives for our business and for our network.
So not busy at all, is what you're saying.
No.
You're just hanging around, just, clocking in, clocking out, no big deal. Oh my God. Debbie? Oh my goodness. So you have a lot to do, and I'm sure you've had a lot of really wild and wacky experiences. Talk to me about a time when you had a challenge and you're like, there's no way you're getting through this, and then you did.
Yeah, so probably the first iteration of the flagship, right? So I'd been kind of lobbying our business for a while, and my reputation precedes me, Laura, because we'll probably hear this story a number of times, but I've been lobbying the agency for a while to build this physical space in which we could really bring the prowess of our planning and strategic teams to life in a really creative and immersive way for our clients, right? Like when we talk about shopper journeys, when we talk about experiences, they often kind of show up as bubbles on a PowerPoint presentation. And I was just like, our clients are not going to get this. They're not going to get how their end consumer is really going to feel the brand. They're not going to experience how, consumers see the brand across and how the brand manifests across different channels. And so I'd lobbied the agency for quite a while to kind of invest in creating this space. And I finally got the budget signed off. And that was like, for me, Laura, I was like, this is either a career defining or a career breaking moment. It's kind of like,
there's no one. There's no in between. There's literally no in between. Either this is amazing or, oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah, exactly that. And I've never felt such pressure to deliver than that moment, because there was so much trust, so much investment, forget about just financial, in really backing kind of my vision. that I really genuinely worried about not being able to pull it off. You know, from a technology perspective, from a creative perspective, it was really breaking all the ceilings that had ever been put in place. And then for an agency to be driving that with their own investment, and you know what it's like working for an agency. I mean, even updating their website is a is a bit of a challenge, but to really build and deliver something of such stature, of such importance, of such impact to our clients' business was huge pressure on me. And I remember when we launched and we got Exco into the room, members of the Exco cried after they had felt the experience in that space. And after all the trials and tribulations of getting the technology to work, developing creative experiences that were really going to blow the minds of our clients and their key customers, to really just have that moment where people in the room were so overwhelmed that they were crying with happiness, I think for me was probably one of the most rewarding times of my career.
Oh, wow. That is, that's amazing. Well, one, what you built was phenomenal, and what you're building looks phenomenal for a 2.0. So creative finding, oh my God, and amazing. And like, but also the best thing about when you do great tech is that not only is it amazing, but it does have so many different tentacles and functionalities where folks can see in so many different ways. And that's the thing that I think is so exciting about what you're doing with the flagship, because like you're going to be able to essentially walk in and be like, okay, now I'm in the store. Yeah. And I can experience that. And I think, obviously, you speak my language when it's about experiences. There is something about the way you feel when you walk into a shopping experience like that. And, if you think about all the times in our own lives, like when you remember the first time you walk into a store where you're like, what? This is incredible. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And the flip side is you walk in the store like, oh my God, what is this? And, I think sometimes, our ideas can be seen as, like I said, bubbles on a page. But when you get that 3-dimensional thing, when you walk into that, when you can actually feel it, that changes all of your perspectives and all of your senses around what you thought you knew versus what you're actually experiencing right now. And so I'm so excited to see what the next one comes out.
I can't wait. I can't wait to show you, Laura. And I think that's the challenge with digital, is that it can feel very fragmented. To your point, you can have digital and retail, you've got social commerce, you've got e-commerce, you've got marketplaces, you've got so many spaces and places now which are digitally driven or digitally enabled. And it can feel quite disparate and fragmented when you're trying to plan for that connected brand experience. But actually being able to pull that all together, to your point, in a single immersive experience, so clients can understand how their consumers are experiencing their brand across all of those different channels, I think is hugely powerful and really needed actually today, in today's world.
It really is. I think, especially since we've all been stuck inside for 2 years, and so how we're going to interact with technology, how we can interact with the shopper experience is just going to change. Yeah. And so, being able to be in an environment like that, so hopefully, that fast track what that's going to feel like is going to be awesome, and and help so many clients. So we've done all this really cool stuff that are like amazing and awesome, because of course you're an awesome and amazing game changer. But what does Debbie do for Debbie? What do you do for your self-care?
Prioritize my family, Laura. I'm really driven by my large, diverse family. I have to say, I was really reveling in the fact that I was able to put on lunch for 15 of my family members yesterday. It's Sunday. It's the first Sunday roast. And it really just drove home to me how important having the people I love and care about around me, and how I want to do whatever I can for them to bypass some of the challenges and the experiences that I've had, and just help them with whatever's in my armory to help make them feel great, make them feel like they can achieve their potential and realize their potential. And it seems really altruistic, but it's what makes me happy. What makes me really, really happy is seeing other people fly and do well and really achieve their own dreams and ambitions. So that's what I do for self-care. And it sounds like a really crazy answer, because maybe I should say wallowing in a bath of bubbles, or drinking a pot of chamomile tea, but actually just seeing people happy and fulfilled is what drives me.
No, it's a great answer, because like that's the thing. It's like when you see what you're able to help make happen, that warms and fuels your soul.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like you give, what you give, you get back so much more. The more you give, the more you get back. And so like, I think it's a great example of this amazing self-care, because again, you're putting yourself, that's your version of putting yourself first. And I love it. So it isn't always about the bubble baths. It's like what makes you feel really fantastic.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that is. So like, go girl. And looking back on all the stuff that you've done, what do you think you'd tell 18-year-old Debbie?
This makes me feel a bit emotional, because I especially, the last few years, I've been thinking about it. Laura, you and I, spoke about this before, but while I was at university, my now husband, he's my husband, so we did things back to front, but we had our daughter whilst I was in my second year of university. And I don't know if anyone listening to this podcast will have parents like mine, but my mum was definitely you better finish university or bad things will happen to you. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a massive struggle, being at university, having a daughter at 19, working to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. And I wish I could just say to my 18 or 19-year-old self, it would be okay. Everything will turn out fine. And I think at that age, what's really nice is that you haven't experienced life. So you just run into it bold and you don't know what's going to come. But it was a really hard time for me, probably the hardest I've had in my life so far. And I just wish I could give my 18-year-old self a massive hug and just say, I'm seeing you in a few years' time and you did good, girl.
Oh, that's wonderful. She did more than good, global digital officer, just that, like this. There are not that many of them out there. So like,
no, they're not. You're right.
She's a big boss lady, just saying. And it's also just an amazing credit to you and your ability to stick to it, and and know that you'd find your way, because boy did you ever. Which is phenomenal, and I think a big inspiration to a lot of folks, because whatever challenges you may have along the way, it is about putting that one foot in front of the other and remembering to breathe, and you'll find your way somehow, some way.
Completely. And the other thing also I'd say is, you asked me earlier, what is it like being a woman in this, in this field? And I think actually I brought a lot of restraints myself to the table. I had a self-doubt because of where I came from and my socioeconomic status and how I talk, and the fact that I was a young mother, and a lot of that I brought to the table because I brought it to the table, and I felt like I didn't have I wasn't worthy of being at the table. And I really wish I'd kind of given myself a big kick up the backside much sooner than I did, because I think it would have made an even bigger difference.
So your world domination would have been even bigger. I get it. I see it.
You make me laugh.
It makes sense. It makes really good sense. But yeah, look, we all get that version of the imposter syndrome when you're like, wait, how did I, what? I'm here? Really? You're talking to me? And so it's hard, and you have it in different phases of your life, because again, it's just it's unique, and you feel like, wait a second, hold on. But the drive is like, yeah, you're supposed to be here. Like, I saw a really interesting quote on those like Instagram memes yesterday. And it's like, stop worrying about the fact that like you're in this spot. You're here for this particular spot for this particular reason, and you deserve to be there. And I needed that too, because I was like, this is, this has been the craziest 4 weeks of my life. So I needed to, I needed that too. Or like, all right, no, I'm supposed to be in this spot right at this moment because I deserve to be. I earned it. So have to we all have to remind ourselves of that. And then I think it also the ability to be humble and give ourselves grace around that like not every day we're gonna feel like we're a superwoman. And some of this will be kind of overwhelming and a little bit challenging. So 1000% understand that one entirely. But we find it. And so last question for you. Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Yeah, so I would say, just off the back of what you were just talking about, Laura, my ask of the audience is to intentionally create spaces for other women. I have been so lucky over the course of my entire career to have such amazing cheerleaders behind me, just pushing me forward, creating spaces for me in business intentionally. And I really work hard to pay that forward. And I would just ask everybody else to do the same thing, and be really intentional about it, because it transforms the businesses that we're in. It transforms people's lives. It's the right thing to do. And Laura, you and I were just having a conversation around, the real value of diversity in the workplace. There's a real business value to it. And so we've all got to just get a bit more intentional about doing that. And I say also to senior people that are listening to this conversation, see what you can do to pay it forward or pay it back, or whatever whatever the right statement is, but also find people that you can mentor and provide real advice around circumventing some of the challenges that you would experience, because I think there's no greater gift than having another generation or our peers circumventing the challenges that we've experienced. There's no point, other people going through the same cycle that you did, right? So how do you use your experience and help other people build on that and learn from that more quickly, more effectively, to the benefit of themselves?
So true. Oh my God, so true. It's and it's such a really important one. It's like, just because you had a nightmare getting to where you are doesn't mean everybody else should go through the same nightmare.
Completely. I'm all about fast track. I didn't go through this pain for someone else to go through the same pain.
Exactly. It's and keeping lift as you climb. As you climb. And it's not just about mentoring people when they're young. It's about when you see an opportunity to put somebody in a space where they should be. They just haven't been given the opportunity, and you have the power to give them the opportunity. Give them the opportunity.
Yeah.
They're not going to screw it up.
And also, do you know what I think also is really important is just to tell real stories, Laura. I remember seeing some of my female bosses, kind of as I started to become more senior, and they did seem like super women. I was just like, oh my God, you've got the perfect family, the perfect job. And it's an awful rhetoric to portray, right, with our peers and with other women, because no one is superwoman, right? Something has always got to give. And the more that we manifest this perception of being a superwoman and not telling real stories and sharing the highs as well as the lows, we're just creating, ridiculous amount of pressure on women to be something that's just not achievable. And it's okay. That's okay. Some days you're going to be an awesome businesswoman and other days you're going to be an awesome mother, but having all of those plates spinning all at the same time on exactly the same day is just, very few people can do that, really. And I say that with seriousness.
Yeah, I mean, it is messy sometimes, and it is horrible sometimes. And I think we have to be honest with the fact that like you can't be everywhere, you can't solve every problem. We all have really rough days. Um, and I think the more that we can let folks understand that, like, yeah, that was sucky. It was not fun. The better off we all will be, because we don't give people that. We give folks this kind of false sense of like, oh, it has to be this or it has to be that, and that's not the truth.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah. I would completely agree with you. Oh well, Debbie, no, I have to just keep on chatting, and we will very soon. But thank you so much for sharing your just incredible story with me. I mean, you just are such an amazing leader. I am so honored to know you now, and I can't wait to probably meet you in person. And thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic.
Oh, ditto, lady. I'm in awe of you, and I'm really honored that you given me some space on your podcast series. Like, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And honestly, the admiration is absolutely mutual. You're a boss lady, and I'm so glad to share this stage with you. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. And so we'll put details in the show notes to connect with you, Debbie, and see all the really amazing work that she puts together. It's fantastic. And that is our show.